This is the WGNS Action Line, talking with Rutherford County newsmakers about what matters most to you. Now, your host, Scott Walker.
This morning, we'll be talking about hearing. Maybe your hearing is not as good as it once was, and maybe there's some things you can do to make it better. With us today in studio, we have Dr. Shawn Lancaster. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on this morning.
So tell us a little bit about your background and what got you into audiology of all things.
Well, that's an interesting question. Growing up, I never imagined that I would be in this field, but I have a cousin that has suffered with hearing loss her whole life. Now started with hearing aids, but now has a cochlear implant in both ears. But just growing up with her and seeing her struggle motivated me to get into the field of audiology, and I've enjoyed every minute of it and help people every day, and a great field to be in.
When it comes to hearing, is that a problem, hearing loss? Is that a problem that a lot of people suffer with?
It is. I think the last figure was about 35 million people in the U.S. suffer from hearing loss.
And I would guess a lot of folks don't really realize to what level of hearing loss they have.
Oh, no. A lot of people put off getting hearing tested, and even when they're hearing tested, it takes people on average about 7 years to do anything about it.
7 years just to do the first step.
That's right. That's correct.
So when it comes to patients here locally in Rutherford County, is there a similar story? A lot of them are telling you, for example, they may say, I worked at the airport for 20 years, or who knows what it was. Fill in the blank there, because I am curious.
Well, yes. I mean, I can't stress this enough. The best thing you can do is just at least go to an audiologist and have your hearing evaluated. If nothing else, just to get a baseline to see where you stand and see if there has been any damage. And that way you'll know as you're tested after that if there has been any change, especially if you've been exposed to noise. You should have your hearing tested.
And I'm sure there are some jobs, there's some avenues that people take in life that are worse for others when it comes to hearing.
Yes, we see a lot of people working in manufacturing plants, construction, anything where they're exposed to noise. They're prone to hearing loss. But we also see a lot of genetic hearing loss as well. The
hearing aids of today, they're quite different from hearing aids, let's say, in the 60s or 70s, aren't they?
They certainly are. They have come a long ways.
And how big are we talking here? I mean, if somebody were to get, new hearing aids, is it something that other folks are going to notice?
Well, it depends. We choose hearing aids based off the hearing loss, but also the anatomy of the ear. We have hearing aids that are so small you really can't see them. They fit deep into the ear canal. Even a lot of the over-the-ear hearing devices are very small. Even the rechargeable devices have gotten smaller. It's really not a stigma like it used to be. Now that a lot of people are wearing Bluetooth, or back in the early 2000s, people were wearing those Bluetooth devices. And then now a lot of people wear the AirPods and earbuds. So the stigma has kind of disappeared as far as having a device on your ear.
And I'm sure people have come to you, after they've got that first set of hearing aids, after they got their first pair, they probably came back to you and said, I never knew what I was missing out on in life. What else have they said to you?
Oh, that happens all the time. People really, what I tell new users is when you're going to really notice the biggest difference is after you take them off. After you've worn them for some time and you take them off at night, to go to bed, or when you first wake up in the morning, people really notice that their hearing really is worse than it was. And the hearing aids do make a difference, but it's when you take them off is when you really notice your hearing deficit.
Now, I know there's a lot of signs and cues that we should be picking up on to figure out, hey, this is a problem. Our hearing is not what it used to be. But what are some of those signs that people should look for that we probably ignore?
Well, the first sign that I hear from almost everyone is the TV volume is louder. Their spouse is complaining that the TV is louder than it used to be, and they're just not understanding. Restaurants, crowded environments, that's another area where people really struggle. And so I would say, and just family gatherings, like we're about to have this next week with Thanksgiving, people get together for the holidays and realize that, hey, they're not hearing around the dinner table. They're not hearing when their grandkids come over. So that's another big sign that you may need to have your hearing evaluated.
And what about when they may hear somebody talking to them, they see they're talking to them, but they can't quite grasp what they're saying, or maybe the words, for some reason, they're not hearing every syllable, so it's almost like a foreign language they're hearing.
Well, that's true. I like to say you may not have a hearing problem, but you have an understanding problem. And that's the biggest issue that we see is a lot of people suffer from high frequency hearing loss, and that's when you start to have difficulty with understanding speech. When the waiter comes up to you at the restaurant, you're not understanding. You hear them talking, but you don't understand what they're saying. So, and that's why the TV volume usually goes up, because when you raise the volume, a lot of times you can understand better than you could with the volume down.
So we shouldn't panic and think to ourselves, something's wrong with my brain all of a sudden, or should we?
Well, that's why I say the first step is always to have your hearing evaluated by an audiologist, not only to test your hearing to see where it is, but to rule out any underlying medical condition. That's very important.
And if it's a problem where you're not hearing certain levels of sound, or maybe it's the higher pitch sounds or the lower pitch sounds, I could see where that would really mess up speech when trying to listen to what somebody's saying, because their voice obviously goes up and down.
Of course, and that's more prevalent in children. We see children who have hearing loss, they often develop speech later in age, or they may struggle to develop speech. So that's why it's very important, if your child is showing signs of hearing loss, to have them tested, because it could affect their speech.
Do some people, or maybe more than average, I don't know, have a problem with one ear, but yet they don't have a problem with the other ear, or is it usually both ears fairly equally?
Well, we do see, we call it asymmetrical hearing loss, where one ear may be normal, the other ear may have a deficit. We don't see that as much unless there is a medical condition attached to it, because most of the time when we're in noisy environments, both ears are exposed the same. But we do often see medical conditions that affect one side that may not affect the other ear. And those are special cases, and we do have devices that work for people who may only have hearing loss in one ear but not the other. But if you have hearing loss in both ears and it is about the same, we always recommend wearing two hearing aids. Two hearing aids is, in most cases, always better than one.
Again, we're talking with Doctor of Audiology, Dr. Shawn Lancaster, here in Murfreesboro, and he's in studio with us today. Going back to those who are getting hearing aids for the very first time, I know we mentioned how small they are, but what are the different types of devices people can get today? And is that device, is it a lot better than years past, or the performance of it, is it about the same?
Well, the technology has changed. About 20 years ago, digital hearing aids really came on the market, and they have just perfected over time. We now have hearing aids that not only connect to your phone for phone calls, but have apps that you can go on, like remote controls for your hearing aids, where you can control the hearing aid in different environments. It gives you the opportunity to fine-tune your device in those different environments. So not only have they improved in technology, but they've improved in size. Even the smaller devices, we now have rechargeable completely in the canal hearing aids, where I never would have imagined having rechargeable devices that small, but now we have devices that fit completely in the ear that are rechargeable, over the ear hearing aids that are rechargeable. We still have battery operated hearing aids. They're still on the market because some people still prefer having a battery operated hearing aid, but the rechargeable technology has gotten so good that I feel confident recommending a rechargeable hearing aid to anyone.
And with these hearing aids, do people go to bed with them still in? Do they take a shower with them?
Most people do not sleep with them. There is occasionally I have that patient that their hearing is so severe that they worry about not hearing their smoke alarm, their fire alarm, an intruder coming in the house, and they may wear one hearing aid to bed just for peace of mind. But in most cases, I don't recommend sleeping in hearing aids. For one, like I mentioned before, most hearing aids nowadays are rechargeable. So you have to charge your devices at some point. So, while you're sleeping is the best time to do that. But in most cases, I do not recommend sleeping in your hearing aids.
And the cool thing about the ones today, a lot of the devices, a lot of the brands, you can, like you were saying, you can listen to your phone, you can have a conversation on your phone through those hearing aids.
That's right. And that's in most patients, that's their favorite feature, because they can take phone calls to the hearing aid. They can hear it in both ears versus one. So it improves your ability to hear on the phone. You can also listen to music. I have people who exercise with their hearing aids. They listen to music while they do that. And then, like I mentioned before, the apps, you can control your hearing aids with apps on your phone. I mentioned exercising with your hearing aid. Because we've gone to the rechargeable batteries, most hearing aids are much more water resistant than they used to be. So people can exercise and sweat, and in most cases, it won't affect the hearing aid.
When you look at relationships, how detrimental is that loss of hearing to a relationship if the person is not seeking the proper help to get a hearing aid?
Well, that's an interesting question. I do often find that couples, tend to argue more over, especially the TV volume. They may get frustrated with each other because one spouse may say one thing when the other spouse cannot understand them, especially if they're trying to communicate from one room to the next, or even standing in the kitchen and washing dishes. It can be very frustrating when you're trying to communicate and someone's doing an activity like cooking or washing dishes and they cannot hear their partner. It can lead to frustrations.
Of course, Thanksgiving right around the corner, Christmas also around the corner. Is there still an opportunity for somebody to come in, have a visit, get their hearing checked, and then have hearing aids by those holidays?
By Christmas, yes. We're a little late for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, like next
it's
Thursday.
It's too close, that's right. But we do, one thing that's unique about my practice is I offer hearing aid trials. I have many different styles or brand hearing aids that I can offer. We do 1 week trials, 2 week trials. A patient comes in, we do a hearing test. We can fit them with a device that same day. They walk out the door, do a week or 2 week trial, come back and let us know how they've done with that device. They can even try different technology levels within that same brand. So it gives them a chance to really evaluate the device before they make a commitment to purchasing the device. And people tell me all the time that they really appreciate having the ability to do that. Most time, especially if you're a new user, you don't know what to expect. You hate to walk into a place, invest a lot of money into something that you don't know is going to work or not. Even though most hearing aids have a mandated trial, the state of Tennessee requires a 30-day trial, you still have to pay up front for those devices. So the week or 2 week trial gives you a chance to try without making any purchases, without putting any money down.
That's cool. And then when you look at a doctor-prescribed hearing aid versus something you find online, what are the differences that we need to look out for?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. There's a lot of news out there about over-the-counter hearing aids. And over-the-counter hearing aids might be fine for a lot of people, but for a lot of people, you need to take caution. Have your hearing tested first, evaluated by an audiologist. Like I mentioned earlier, it's not just about hearing. There may be an underlying medical condition that's causing your hearing loss. You may have a buildup of earwax, that needs to be addressed, before you get hearing aids. You may have tinnitus, which is ringing in the ears, which over-the-counter hearing aids do not address. But there are some pros to over-the-counter hearing aids. They are readily available, and they are less expensive. But there are even different levels of technology when it comes to over-the-counter hearing aids. We have some really cheap over-the-counter hearing aids that I really don't recommend. To get a really good pair of over-the-counter hearing aids, you're probably still looking at about $1,500 to $2,000 to get a good over-the-counter pair of hearing aids. But like I said, the drawback about those devices is they're often self-fit. So the consumer has to purchase that device, take a hearing test through an app or through the computer. So they're not really getting a whole picture of their hearing loss because you want to be able to identify any underlying medical conditions that may exist, and so therefore it could be dangerous having a test or getting an over-the-counter hearing aid without a hearing test by a certified audiologist.
So if somebody gets just regular, run-of-the-mill generic hearing aids online, if they buy those, put them in, can they damage their hearing further?
Well, they could. There's always a danger of over-amplifying your hearing, which can cause damage, or even under-amplifying. If you under-amplify, you're not going to be satisfied with that product. You're going to just assume that hearing aids don't work and probably never try again. That's why I encourage people to always go to an audiologist first. Even if you intend to buy an over-the-counter hearing aid, go to an audiologist, have a test done, and that way you can use that test in programming that device.
And again, with us this morning, Dr. Shawn Lancaster here in Murfreesboro. In purchasing the good quality doctor-prescribed hearing aids, how long does that set usually last?
On average, a hearing loss will last 5 to 6 years. If you take good care of it, go back for regular maintenance, regular cleanings, there's no reason why you shouldn't get 5 to 6 years out of that device. We are seeing with the rechargeable hearing aids, we do see an average battery life of about 3 years. So it is very important, because most hearing aids come with a 3-year warranty. It is very important to take that device back to your audiologist and have them send it off before the warranty runs out to have a new rechargeable battery placed in that hearing aid. That way you will get that average 5 to 6 years out of your hearing aid, because, like I said, we have found that the rechargeable batteries only last about 2.5 to 3 years at the most.
Now, is it a custom fit whenever you're getting that prescription for that hearing aid?
It can be. It depends on whether or not you want an in-the-ear hearing aid or an over-the-ear hearing aid. But even some of the over-the-ear hearing aids do require a custom mold. So in that case, yes, they are custom fit to your ear. And another reason that I recommend going to a professional is it is very important to have that hearing aid verified. When you have a hearing aid fitting, it's not just a matter of putting it in your ear, setting it to your hearing loss. You want to make sure that that hearing aid has gone through a test where we verify the fitting. We put the little microphones down in the ear and record the output of that hearing aid so that we know that we are giving you a custom fitting.
And then over the ear versus in the ear, I'm pretty sure what the difference looks like. But for those who are thinking about getting hearing aids, which direction do a lot of people head and why?
Well, most people go with an over-the-ear device, because an over-the-ear device, we use these little silicone earpieces we call domes, and the domes are soft, supple, they fit well in the ear. We can use open domes to leave the ear canal mostly open. So for somebody who just has a high-frequency hearing loss, they really appreciate having the open domes because they don't plug the ear up. In a lot of cases, they're much more comfortable to wear. So for a lot of people, they go that direction. In the ear hearing aids, they are custom fit, but they do introduce some issues that people have. You don't want a hearing aid that fit too tight in the ear. That's going to cause occlusion, cause the ear to feel like it's plugged. So that's one issue that we see with in the ear hearing aids. That in a lot of cases can be alleviated by going with a open fitting.
Okay, and out of those two different types of hearing aids, does one, is it easier to hide one of the two easier?
It depends on the ear, and it depends on who's wearing it. If you have hair to cover up behind an over-the-ear hearing aid, then those little thin wires, nobody usually see those. Yeah. They really don't. In the ear hearing aids, people do tend to see more unless they are completely in the canal. But most in-the-ear hearing aids are going to come out of the ear canal and rest in the outside part of the ear. So, most people can see those more than they can an over-the-ear device, because with an over-ear device, it fits behind the ear. The earlobe covers up that hearing aid. The little thin wires that come around the front are clear. It's a clear plastic. Most time people don't see those. So it just really depends on the person. And that's why I say go in to see an audiologist. Have them put an over-the-ear hearing aid on your ear. You can look at it in the mirror and see if that's what you want. But a lot of times, what drives an audiologist to choose a certain style for someone is their hearing loss. So not everyone can wear an over-the-ear hearing device, and some people don't want. It's not a good choice to choose an in-the-ear device.
And again, with us this morning, Dr. Shawn Lancaster. And as we close out today, how do folks get a hold of you? How do they set an appointment?
Well, they can go to my website. It's murfreesborohearing.com. They can call our office at 615-893-4618. That's the best way to make an appointment. We have a live person that answers the phone that can set up that appointment for you. But the website as well, you can send us a message to the website if you'd like to do that.
Sounds great. Again, Dr. Shawn Lancaster, audiologist here in Murfreesboro. And again, feel free to check out the website or give you a call. Take that first step, I guess.
Yes. Well, thank you very much again. Thanks for having me on.
The Action Line on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at WGNSradio.com.
Adam's Place is tailored to you.
Well, I'm on a salt-free diet, so they're very good to help.
And exercise?
Well, I do a lot of walking. I have a bad back.
Peggy Cunningham invites you to
just come on and live with us.
Hi, this is Terry Deal at Adams Place. Call me for more information about Adams Place. Phone 615-904-9111.
On Memorial.
Across from Walmart.